What is attraction? Welcome to Philosopher's Corner. I'm John. What is attraction? The standard definition of attraction is essentially a force that physically draws near two or more objects. Now, in normal physics, on one level of attraction, opposites attract. Oppositely charged particles attract. In the electromagnetic force, an object that has a positive charge attracts an object that has a negative charge. And then they are physically drawn nearer to each other. Interestingly, also in normal physics, the force of gravity states that objects with mass attract each other. And that's regardless of the electrical charge on them. So planets that have mass attract each other simply due to their mass. Mass attracts mass. And then in the metaphysical soul reality manifested level, like attracts like. So on one level, we have opposites attracting. On another level, we have everything attracting. And on another level, we have only things that are similar attracting. And they're all existing in the same reality. And they're all coordinated and harmonized and somehow working together. Opposites attracting, likes attracting, and everything attracting. That's pretty wild. So if we start with the electromagnetic level, where essentially you have, atoms and positively, negatively charged atoms and base elements. And I may be getting the physics not 100%, but like basically have they're trying to bond essentially. They get close and they figure out if they could bond, because you have different elements have valence electrons, so they essentially have an extra space in their electron orbit, and they can link up with other atoms and create chemical reactions, which, as we know, generates energy and creates new elements. And that's pretty fascinating in and of itself. And at that level, it's all opposites attracting, the electromagnetic level. You put magnets, the old experiment where you put magnets, and if you put positive side to the positive side, and you try to push them together, they repel. And you can feel the force, which it's a fundamental part of physics, and you learn it early, but it's really profound. Like when you can feel that force with your own hands that it repels. And then if you switch the magnet to the other side and you have a negative charge facing the positive side, they immediately snap together, and then they bond as strongly as they can given the material restraints. So you have clear-cut proof that in that realm, opposites attract. That's a law of physics in that realm, that the negative and positively oriented poles attract each other. And that law spreads out throughout the material reality in terms of electromagnetically charged objects, right? Now we look at those same objects, those magnets. Well, they're always on the ground. Like if you let them go, it doesn't matter whether they're oriented with each other negatively or positively, and whether they're attracting or repelling each other. If you let them go, they both fall to the ground. And that's gravity. And that doesn't matter about what their charge is. That's simply a measure of the fact that they have mass and that they're on a planet that has mass. And that's according to current physics. And when you let them go, they are then attracted to the object with the greater mass. the planet they're on. Which is interesting because the planet attracts everything regardless. The mass overwhelms whatever the positive or negative charge is and attracts it to the ground. It doesn't matter what any of the objects on Earth are, at least according to current physics. It doesn't matter what any of the positive or negative charges are on the planet. The overwhelming mass of the planet attracts the objects to it. That's the same force, that gravitational force, according to 21st century physics, is the same thing that keeps us in our orbit around the sun. And that gravitational force is what creates physical order in our universe as we know it, as we currently describe it. So that's interesting because the attractive force of gravity doesn't seem to care about the attractive force of positive and negative repulsion. I'm sure the numbers all work out to explain why, but just on the general principle, that's where it's at. And then when we make attraction a human construct, and now we're discussing it in terms of the metaphysics of it, in terms of a human being being seen as a being who can create and manifest a reality, which is an established fact. That person is operating on a different set of rules, principles in physics, in which it has been demonstrated that when they are consciously doing it, manifesting their reality with attraction in mind, and even subconscious attraction, they attract what they are. They are attracting like. So on the one level of it, you have the reality having opposites attract. And then you have reality attracting everything. And then you have reality only attracting like. Now in the human version of the manifestation of attraction, where they're, especially when they're consciously doing it, the rules are also that nature abhors a vacuum. So the practitioner of attraction in the conscious human form seems to be that at first they have to become some level of self-aware, know thyself, and that they have to create essentially a vacuum in themselves. They have to know themselves and scan themselves and become conscious of the elements of themselves. And then in a way, through the use of alchemy, alchemical meditation, transmutation, in the process of bringing the unconscious into the conscious, clear themselves out, so to say. We could say that they are examining not only the content of themselves, but of what their intentions are, what their deepest intentions are. Perhaps getting down to the soul level. And in doing so, they have created a metaphorical vacuum, and maybe a real vacuum when we get more clarity on it, within themselves. And in that moment, when they've emptied themselves, they have satisfied the universe's requirement for creating a vacuum, which in terms of physics is essentially a super low pressure system within themselves. They've emptied themselves, created a low pressure system, and then that signals to the universe, that's a law of physics, that when the universe encounters a vacuum, it moves to fill it. And even less extreme than a vacuum, when it encounters a low pressure system, energies come in to fill low pressure systems, be they wind, water, metaphysical. And so in that moment, when the practitioner has created sufficient conditions within themselves to create a low pressure system or a vacuum, and they've done so in an intentional manner, even though it does happen, it can happen in an unintentional manner. Many people are doing this unintentionally or unconsciously. But then whatever the predominant elements are residing within that person, whatever the predominant qualities and traits are relative to the plane of manifestation that they're engaging in, then begin to attract like elements. And we have ample proof of this throughout the millennia of human existence, of people doing the science on it, of sitting down and consciously manifesting that and engaging in that practice, having stated objectives before they enter the process, entering into the process, and then the objectives being achieved in reality, verifiably, repeatedly, throughout different cultures, different eras, different parts of the planet, ranging from aboriginals to super wealthy, industrialized first world inhabitants. Excuse me. So we've done the science on that type of manifestation. So in the overarching sense, we know for a fact that attraction exists. And we also know that attraction has different versions of itself. It has a version of itself where the opposites attract. It has a version of itself where everything attracts. And it has a version of it where likes attract. And in the human condition, we get to experience and observe all of them simultaneously. I have a magnet on me where the opposites are attracting. I'm sitting on Earth where the gravity is attracting everything. And I'm speaking with you, attracting like. Philosophically minded people. Bringing it all into focus in its totality and having clarity on it is an interesting point to become a full point of attraction in full awareness and consciousness. So, attraction. Well, thanks for spending some time here at Philosopher's Corner. I hope you found it helpful. Attraction. It's a cool thing. All right. Well, have fun.